Hello and welcome back to the 13 Roses interviews with the absolutely beautiful women of the 13 Roses Sacred Sexuality Teacher Training. And today we are joined by Helena, and I am so happy to have Helena here with us in this call. Helena and I bumped paths, I think about maybe 10 years ago, or was it?
Yeah, a bit less maybe, but yeah, it's quite a while.
Yeah, in the last decade, and Helena walked into my yoga studio that I had in Lancaster in the UK and really fell deeply into a soul healing journey. Something was really ignited within her to seek herself further, and she has been relentless since then, continuing her growth, even while struggling a young family and a career and all those things. So I'm really happy to welcome Helena. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, Helena. Who are you? Where are you living, for example?
Thank you so much for having me, Colette, and for the beautiful introduction. I'm from Germany. I met Colette in England when I was working there at the university. And in the meantime, since 2 years, a bit more than 2 years now, I'm back in Germany again because of my son, my little child, and my husband's work. And yeah, I've undergone quite a number of changes. I gave up my position at university, and I'm now in a process of yeah, organizing myself anew. I spend more time with my son, and I'm more into organic farming now. So quite a big change I've undergone in the
Ah.
last few years.
Definitely, you've done exactly what the work and the seeking of the soul is meant to do, and that's completely change our lives as we know it and bring us into a new, more connected space in our life, following actually what we want to do instead of the things that we think we should do. And I really think that links to the work that we've been doing in the 13 Roses. Sacred sexuality is about living in that sacred, we've said it in the interviews that it's not about sex, it's about that energy within the body that's linked and expressed as our sexual self. So, how would you link that to kind of living more soulfully like you are doing? How is that sacred sexuality bringing that like knowledge about how you really want to live about?
Yeah, so it's absolutely true. And I think it's like, so you learn to connect to yourself.
Mm.
And this is so easily said, but so difficult to really get there. And I had years of trying with very, very little success. And this work is really like touching something and supporting you in making a physical, an emotional, a spiritual connection to yourself. With a lot of practices by having this container with other women who are, yeah, having the same urge and thrive to go there.
Yeah.
And yeah, with great guidance from Colette to individually bring everyone, yeah, to this point of connecting more.
Yeah, and it's not like you say, it's not easy, Helena, is it? Because you have to shift some things
Yes.
that are in the way that prevent you from seeing that. And I see it a lot in the group as you do. It's that we've been like all of us like impregnated by certain ideals and ideas about how we live our life. And school does that, our workplaces do that, our parents, our education. So have you got any examples, could you say, about some kind of structure or idea that was enforced upon you through your life that needed breaking down to enable you some freedom?
Um, yes. So I was very much into having this formal education and a secure job and yeah, climbing up the career ladder. And I thought this is the way it should be to be successful in life. And this has completely changed, that it's more or less independent of those external factors. And much more about connecting to yourself and seeing what is needed, and also follow, first of all, discovering your passions, and then also following through with them.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit it spot on there. I'm similar than you. I went down the academia route and, got really kind of like in my masculine energy to be able to do that. And you can say more on that, but we kind of go in this masculine overdrive, and it's all into that like competitiveness, getting really good grades, studying, like coming out of one set of academic structure into another, because that academic structure does that, doesn't it? It kind of like makes you go for the next thing, the A level, the degree, the masters, the PhD, the postgrad, and we just get in this kind of tunnel of achieving competitiveness with ourselves, not with others even, and just like really living in this masculine dominated energy within the self. How has that changed with doing the sacred sexual work? How has that been coming up for you and in realizing that?
Oh yeah, it has changed a lot. It's like getting a completely different perspective on things, setting success in relation, going more from the achievement level to relationships and sustainability, getting in some sort of flow, really focusing also what the things you do are doing with others, what they do on the long term. This also got hand in hand for me with having a child. 4 years ago, I got my son, and this is such a different level of, I don't even want to call it project, but this is such a different task in life with a different perspective, not just for the next achievement to tick off, but really for so much more, for a whole new life. And
I think we can all connect to that, those of us that are mothers. And yeah, it's a feminine initiation, isn't it? It really is an initiation. It drops us deeper into our feminine. And the whole childbirth initiation is a sacred sexual experience. It is. And that's been removed from us as women. It became a very medical procedure. So many of us are healing from that too in the container. We're rediscovering what femininity is through our sexual sacred nature. And that doesn't mean, as we've said many times, about sex. It's about how a flower is sex. It's the production and the end product of a creative process. And that's what we are as women. When we tune into that sexual nature, we become this beautiful creative project. So imagining yourself as that creative project, because that's actually what's happening to you in the forum. How are you feeling that and connecting with what's happening to you on this creative level through the work?
So it's opening up a lot of different areas and in a more playful way. So I was so much focused on getting things done and like having a certificate and this and that, and now it's more playful and unstructured and sometimes even chaotic, and I'm still struggling quite a lot with this, because this is such a new way of living, working, having life and work much more intermingled, and it's still a new way I need to adjust, and it's not that easy, but it's also often really, really fun, and the whole thing is shifting more and more to that it's really more useful. I find it more useful what I'm doing now, and also that more pleasure is coming in, and pleasure not on a hedonistic level, but really for small and authentic things. And this is coming more and more through.
That's beautiful, more authentic things. That's exactly what I would say happened to me as well. And I'm seeing with the women, earlier on in my spiritual path, I was looking for the highs, the eternal bliss and all of that. And this sexual work brought me right down to exactly as you described, that pleasure on a basic level in the simple things in life. And I can definitely see that happening with you, with like, and me, with the organic farming and reconnecting with earth and food and all of those things that I think are deeply sexual, by the way. It's really sexual getting your hands in the mud and watching something grow, because that is creation in your hands. So I just wanted to really highlight that, and also what you said about the chaos, because the chaotic nature of transformation is transformation. Chaos doesn't happen in a linear way or in a way that we're used to in university. Like with those masculine oriented structures, the feminine force of chaos is completely a spiral and unorganized. And for women like us who have been in our animus, we know that this can be quite disruptive to our system, but is exactly what we need right now. Me and you really need to experience this more, feminine process, don't we?
Yes,
What's it
absolutely.
been like letting go of and for those people that are listening, like the animus is the male energy, the masculine energy, and we as women over many, many years, due to, repression and all of those things, have kind of dropped into more masculine energy as a way of being safe or surviving or trying to, negate a very patriarchal world. So, what's it been like trying to drop that masculine energy and submit to the feminine sexual energy of yourself?
Mm. So it's letting go of control, which is a hard one for me. And it's also coming out of the mind and more on an emotional level, and to allow emotions, to be less afraid of emotions, and to really see them as something useful, directing you to places you need to go, or something you need to release, that goes in already to a more physical level as well. And this is this is not always easy, and it's like learning a new language, because I was so used to work with my mind, to stay in control, and now it's like exploring the opposites of what I was used to do, and how I used to react and act in life.
Yeah. I mean, same for me. Underneath that is the aspect of safety and not feeling safe to be in our feminine nature and in our femininity, and being in our emotion and allowing for that. And that the group space is very supportive of that, isn't it? When we come together in the forum, it's a very kind of nurturing place for us to drop into our feminine. How do you experience the forum? What does that bring to you? What does it give to you?
Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful space, the forum. It's so supportive, but not in a wishy-washy way to just make someone feel good, but it feels like a true holding, and also pointing out places where where the gold lies, places where you need to work on, you can resolve something, to drop deeper, to go into the healing. And it's a beautiful, not balance, but you have both. You have this strong holding of women who are on the same path, and also this softness, and also these triggers to bring you further if you're ready to go there. So it always stays with you if you take this trigger, if you use it to go some a bit further, or if you say, oh, at this moment it's a bit too much, so I'll take it slow. So, but for sure you have the opportunity for incredible grow in a supportive environment in the forum.
Yeah, thank you. And for me, you know, I'm in my own personal forum with a teacher, and it's the place that I really thrive and really grow and really allow space to take consideration another viewpoint, a different belief, them seeing a different aspect of me that I'm unable to see, I'm not conscious of. So I know I thrive in that space, and it really does mimic the ancient way we would have gathered as women in council and taking responsibility for emotions, having a space to splurge out, voice how we feel without being judged or condemned. And then having an elder or someone in the group with experience in that, being able to just give advice, and not, like you say, just saying, oh, you're brilliant, you're wonderful, but saying, have you thought that could be you, and challenging aspects of yourself so you think about yourself differently, which is the key to opening new doors in your life. If you just continue to think of yourself as the same, then you don't change, do you? Just stay on that trajectory. So I love the way you mentioned the trigger. And I've been doing this work for 25 years and shadow work maybe for the last 10, and the trigger still feels like a trigger. It doesn't ever, like soften inside you. I hope maybe I achieve that when I'm in my late 70s or whatever. But can you explain to someone what a trigger feels like when it is, fired?
It's like, so I also have this a lot with my husband.
Oh, yeah.
So he is saying something with a completely different intention, but I feel like he's somehow like picking on me, and I feel like, so I need to defend myself. Why are you saying this? So I wanted to do it in a different way. So it's like an explosion, and you think you need to defend yourself, or you say, oh, you're not right, and I intended it differently. So it's really like a little explosion where you think you have to push this what is coming to you away from you.
Yeah, exactly that. Like it's a physical thing, isn't it? You can feel it physically in your body. And that is the sign that we're defending something, that there's something wanting to be discovered in us for us to further investigate why we've responded in that way and why it has made us feel that way. And then we can start to become aware of the self and our own behaviours. And this is key, isn't it, to unblocking our sacred sexual energy, because all those unresolved issues within the body are blocks to our more sensual nature, our more sacred nature, our more embodied nature. So when we've been working with certain blocks, what have you been finding out about yourself in the forum? What are the things that have been made conscious that you weren't aware of? I know there's been a lot. It's one of those questions, oh my God, where do I start?
So I wasn't aware about how unseparate I was, for example, with examinations at the doctors.
Yeah.
It was like going there, you're doing something good for your health, you're getting checks, and then you're fine. But these examinations, especially for women, can be really intrusive and unnecessary. And I went in there really like quite naive, but on an emotional level, I was not at all met, and I always needed some time after those doctor visits to calm myself down and to regulate. And this is something I got so aware of now during this course, that I would the next time I would go there with a completely different set of boundaries, knowing what I will allow and what I don't allow, or what time to decide on that. I wouldn't get pushed into something I don't know what it is actually about as easily as this has happened in the past.
Yeah, yeah, and two key words there that came up from, because these incidents are illustrating deeper things that are going on with our psyche and our behaviors. So power, being in our power, giving
Mm-hmm.
away our power to those kinds of structures. I mean, I was taught you go to the doctors, you do what the doctor tells you, you just lie there as a woman, and if it's painful, you get over it, and if it's, whatever they say, you do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what makes us as the feminine feel really unsafe, because, of course, that's not true. We
Mm-hmm.
are sovereign beings, and we have to give permission what feels right for us, what doesn't feel right for us. Because if we're doing that on a doctor level, where are we doing that on a personal level too?
Mm-hmm.
So the giving the power away, and the boundaries. And I'd like you just to speak a bit more on boundaries. Like, how have you been negating boundaries? Where have these been coming up? Where have you been able to see where you've not had boundaries in? And what does the difference make about putting boundaries in place?
Mm. You mean the same example, or?
Oh yeah, the same, or the a different one. So if you've had to put the bound, how's that made you feel? How's that made that situation different and you different?
Mhm. Um,
So I was
so,
thinking, like, if you put, for me, this is difficult because it's really like deep work, is it's hard to put into words. So if I put a boundary in, like, there's something comes back to me. Can you explain how you are now like negating that, how you feel after you have gone, I've put this boundary in and now this makes me feel what?
mhm. So in relation to this, what came up was when I gave birth to my son in the hospital.
Mm.
I felt like my boundaries were not respected in many ways. And so I would never allow myself to get into that same situation again
Yeah.
for a next pregnancy. And I would do a completely different planning of how I imagine the birth to take place. Of course, there are so many uncertainties for birthing, but I was quite like going to the hospital, but still I wanted to have a natural birth. This was so naive on hindsight, and I would do a far better planning, having a midwife joining me, trying to go for a home birth if this is possible, and having a much clearer set of boundaries, a much clearer picture of what my needs are, what my wishes are, and much more acting according to that.
Perfect. That's really an amazing example on what I was really trying to get out of you, because it's about self-ownership, isn't it? You
Mm-hmm.
can, if we don't reflect upon it like you have done, then you would never have been able to answer in that way. You would have still been in maybe some projection on the hospital, on the system. You would have been in projection on the doctor or whatever. And in what we've just heard is an example of taking back power and ownership and saying, I've
Mm-hmm.
learned from that, and I've learned what I can do in that place.
Mhm.
And that is empowering, isn't it? To say, actually, I do have the ability to change these situations by the way I approach them and how I,
Mhm.
go in with maybe a set of boundaries or a different ideal. So that was what I really wanted from that, and you explained that perfectly. This course is about taking ownership, isn't it?
Mhm. Absolutely, yes.
And when we take ownership, then things actually begin to move for us, don't they? So, when how does that help when you're seeing other people go? You've seen it in the group when there's, I do it at home saying you're not taking ownership, and you
Mhm.
can see how that person gets stuck.
Mhm.
So how would you see, is there any examples, or is there something in the group that's come up where you've seen, and you don't need to name names, but where you've seen something get stuck, and the behavior around that,
Mm.
or your own behavior, when you've been stuck and you've been refusing to see it?
Mhm. Yeah, it feels like going in circles without taking ownership. You end up again and again at a point where you point outwards and something out of out of your own control is happening to you. And as so never mind what kind, if you can change the excuses, you can change the person to who should be blamed, but you end up over and over again at the same point. And as soon as you start to take ownership and to see what lies within your own power, you move forward very quickly.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. And that circle is really important. There's a lot of times that people who'll be listening to this interview recognize that circle, and that's the key element, is to take ownership. And as we explain and go through in the group, we take ownership, we like feel the emotions and all the other stuff that's connected to that. But the key thing is what you illustrated in your answer on the last question, is that we take action.
Mm-hmm.
We have to take action, otherwise things keep going on the same, don't they, all the time?
Mm-hmm.
So realization, ownership, action, and then actually putting that action into place makes a different route in your life. So that is big things, and thank you for explaining that. They're difficult to highlight, these scenarios, but they're worth it, because other people listening will begin to recognize certain cycles, and we've just illustrated a way in which those cycles can end. So you're a mum, and you've got lots going on. You've got a little one, and you're married, and you've got all this stuff going on at home. Like, how have you been managing the forum and the practices?
um, it asks a lot of dedication
Mm.
and a lot of structure and routine. I'm not there 100%, but I really try, and I often manage 5 or 6 days a week to really fit the practices into my morning as soon as my child is taken care of. And it is a challenge, but the more routine you get, the easier it gets, and it's incredible what you get out of the practices, of the guidance, of the support of the forum. So it's a lot of dedication, really,
Yeah.
daily or nearly daily, um, to go there, to work there. And even when it's not everything is pleasant, but to stay with it, to stick with it, and it will resolve and get better. And it's a bit like waves. So where it's difficult, and then you have a quite pleasurable time, and not very predictable in advance, but it's an incredible journey that is so worth taking.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you said that because, women, the feminine principle is devoted and she is ceremonial, and this forum asks both of those things. And it shows where we've lost that as women, where we've like stepped out of being devotional and ceremonial, because the ceremonies are when we gather in the forum and we hold those spaces together. And we've just lost it as women, and it was key to holding like a matriarch. We're all talking about matriarchal society and how wonderful that would be, but we're all not actually putting that into practice. And doing this is part of the matriarchy, is us as women coming together every day, coming into a devoted space. And actually, what does it feel like gifting yourself that time?
Really good. This is really good. Yeah. It's like, yeah, valuing yourself and your growth and your process, and also like being very mindful and taking care of yourself, when so away from this achievement
Yeah.
place, but just being and staying, sitting with yourself.
I know that's so true. And for me, like I'm always trying to work on something. It might be a work project, it might be the garden, it might be stuff in the apocryphy or whatever I'm onto. And we get so little time to work on us, don't we? When do we
Mm-hmm.
work on us? And this is the time I do, in the time in the morning, the same, and devotional to my practice. My practice is the time I devote to me. It's like my own little internal processing time where I get to work on me and hopefully make a difference to this world by doing that and the people around me. Has that shift been evident for the people around you, how you've changed?
Um, I feel like my my relationship with my husband is much more conscious,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a process, so it's still far from perfect, but it's like this trigger thing I mentioned. So it's like I'm far quicker able to see that it when it was my trigger or when it was his trigger, instead of projecting and blaming the other. So it gets much more conscious and quicker to disentangle these processes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me too. I remember the days where I used to always think it was the other person's fault. Never
Mhm.
mind. Oh
Mhm.
dear. And I'm the same. Like these things allow. Obviously, my partner's doing the work too, so it just allows us to both go say, oh well, it could be me. So let's just go away and work on that and process that ourselves, and then come back together to
Mhm.
discuss it. And yeah, it just changes everything, doesn't it? It's more intimate. It stops all the blame. It allows us to say, well, where is this me and how can I
Mhm.
change, while they're considering, and it doesn't take a conscious partner. Sometimes partners see you reflecting on your behavior and that just automatically makes them do the same.
Mhm.
So it's really good, really, really good for relationships, and obviously for the son as well, as he sees his mum. I mean, your son will have benefited so much from this because you've gone from that career oriented, goal driven woman to a woman who is, and I've seen it in the forum, you have been able to give him more time and you are being at home, and it's just completely different way of parenting than you would have previous to having worked on
Mhm.
yourself.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and and do you see that, sometimes we need to step back and go, gosh, how has this changed me? But do you see how different you parent because of this?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And what do you think, what's the main thing that you think is different with that?
It's more like, I think what's really important is that I'm integrating him in a lot of things I'm doing now. When
Mhm.
this is gardening or doing stuff at home. So this was completely separated before. When I was working, I really needed to be shut off, to be at the computer, to be in my mind. And now it's it's still not easy, but it's possible to integrate him into the daily parts and work of my life, and to have more of a family life following this.
Yeah, and that, you know, your little boy's not able to speak in the way my son is at 15, nearly 16, who shares that the transformation that he's seen is like the softness and the nurturing and the, you know, the ability to see his mum at the cooker making his tea when he walks in fills his heart with joy, whereas before he may have been at work or not
Mm-hmm.
there. And you know, he can verbalize those things to me as I've dropped into a more feminine nature within myself. So it's all good, isn't it, for these young men that are going to come through and hopefully see the feminine and hold her in all her glory and softness, and that she feels safe enough to be soft in those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, wouldn't that be wonderful? But let's finish by just sharing how you see yourself using this work. What are the things that you see your niche from what you've been through? Because remembering from the other interviews, we always say the hardest parts, the parts that you think are the ugliest, you know, are the parts that really help other women come through as well. So how are you going to use it, and what is your niche?
Mm. So I have a lot of experience really now coming from this masculine system, achievement, goal-oriented system, to make a transition to a more feminine way of organizing life, family, work, and to step by step exploring, discovering, and learning to value the feminine aspects that are often feel a bit excluded from the from work life.
Yeah.
The work life I've experienced, the area I've been in. So I think this is something I have embodied myself, being completely through the process, being still in the process,
Yeah.
to relate to this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I've witnessed that, the embodiment of that. I mean, your change of life and what you're doing is the embodiment. We can see that, and you'd be able to definitely speak to women on the challenges that you have to get through to be able to like release that animus drive and the masculine drive
Mm-hmm.
and drop into a feminine space. So absolutely see that in you. And so are you going to be holding groups, one-to-ones? How do you see this? The women aren't finished yet with this course, so they're not really at the end of the 13 months in a really clear understanding of how they're going to use this fully, because they're working at it at progress. So how are you seeing that so far, if you're seeing it at all?
Mm-hmm. Um, One-to-one is for sure something I would like to work with, and also women's circles. And I've done a women's circle in person, and this was a beautiful experience. And I could also imagine doing some online circles, which often is necessary in these times, and which also has the advantage that you don't have to live in the same area, but can nevertheless gather with like-minded people and have this sort of exchange.
Yeah, I totally feel that there's space for that, you know, a women's circle like we hold in the forum so that women can like meet and drop in. And Helena does already teach women's circles and yoga. So what we'll make sure that we do, Helena, is at the underneath this recording, there will be links to how you can get hold of Helena for sessions and for looking into the circles that she'll be holding and where she operates in Germany physically if you're there,
Mm-hmm.
or virtually if you're not there. So yeah, we look forward to you bursting into the world now with all this embodiment and things that you've got to show other women on how you have changed your life around and changed you as a woman. And I bear witness to that, and I'm very honoured to do that. So I'd like to say thank you for your time, Helena, and thank you for all the work that you've been doing on yourself. We know this makes an impact on the collective. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Colette. Thank you so much for your work, for your support, for doing this, for being there for this brilliant interview. Thank you
No, thank you.
so much.
Thank you, darling.